Have you ever sat alone at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the world is closing in? Like the noise of life, the deadlines, the expectations, the constant comparison has become so loud you can't even hear your own thoughts anymore? Maybe you've smiled in front of others, pretending you're fine, but inside, there's chaos. You tell yourself to push through, to just be strong, but something inside whispers, I can't do this anymore. If that feels familiar, you're not broken. You're human. Even the strongest minds in history faced this same storm. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled Rome at its height, once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That line wasn't written in peace, it was written in war, loss, and exhaustion. Marcus wasn't writing from a golden throne, he was writing from the battlefield, covered in dust and doubt. So why does that matter to you right now? Because what he discovered 2,000 years ago may be the key to pulling yourself out of the fog you're in today. There's something no one tells you about feeling overwhelmed. It doesn't always come from too much to do. It often comes from too little clarity. You see, overwhelm isn't just a problem of pressure, it's a problem of perspective. When your mind feels flooded, it's because it's trying to control everything. Your future, your reputation, your emotions, other people's opinions, all at once. It's like trying to hold back the ocean with your bare hands. Epictetus warned about this exact thing. He said, "Some things are in our control and others are not." That's not just a nice quote, it's a line that separates freedom from chaos. Think about that. How much of your stress comes from things you can't truly control? The weather, the past, the way someone spoke to you, the way you think people see you. The Stoics knew that once you separate what's yours from what's not yours, you begin to reclaim power. And that's where this journey begins. The 4 steps to beat overwhelm and take power are not about escaping life's weight, they're about remembering that you're stronger than the storm. But before we reveal those 4 steps, I want you to sit with a story, because philosophy without story is just noise, and life, as Marcus knew, teaches best through experience. Picture this, a Roman general standing on the edge of a battlefield. His army is outnumbered, his soldiers terrified. He feels the pressure of an empire on his shoulders. But as the wind howls, he kneels, presses his hand into the dirt, and whispers, "This moment is mine." That general wasn't just fighting enemies, he was fighting his own mind. That's what you're doing when life feels like too much. You're not at war with the world, you're at war with your thoughts. And if you can master your thoughts, you master everything. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The Stoics didn't just talk about peace, they trained for it. They practiced stillness in chaos. They rehearsed loss, pain, and failure, so when it came, they were ready. The question is, are you? You see, the modern world trains us in the opposite way. It tells us that peace comes after achievement, that we'll finally relax when the inbox is empty, the bank account is full, the relationships are perfect. But here's the truth that most never see. Peace isn't the reward for control, it's the result of surrender. The Stoics didn't wait for life to calm down. They found calm in the middle of life's storms. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations, he didn't write them for others. He wrote them for himself, in the dark, in the chaos, to remind himself of what mattered. His words weren't meant to sound wise, they were meant to keep him sane. He didn't seek perfection, he sought perspective. And maybe that's what you need right now, not to fix everything, but to see everything differently. Because once your perspective shifts, the same world that felt unbearable can become manageable again. Now I want you to imagine your life as a river. The current represents everything you can't control: the world, time, other people, fate. Most people spend their lives thrashing against the current, exhausting themselves, believing that control equals safety. But the Stoic swims differently. They don't resist the flow, They learn to move with it. They stop fighting reality and start aligning with it. That's what the next part of this video is about. Learning to float, not drown. Because the truth is, you were never meant to control the river, you were meant to navigate it. And to do that, you need 4 simple but powerful Stoic steps that can shift your entire mental state in moments of overwhelm. But before I share those steps, I need you to understand one thing. This isn't a motivational speech, it's a survival guide for the soul. The words you're about to hear have kept emperors sane, soldiers brave, and philosophers unshaken. And if you stay with me until the end, they might just change how you handle everything that life throws at you. But here's the twist. Most people will hear these principles and nod, then go back to their old patterns. They'll take notes, but they won't take action. The Stoics would say, knowledge means nothing without practice. So as we move forward, I want you to not just listen, but live these ideas. Because the difference between being crushed by life and rising above it is not how much you know, but how much you remember when the storm hits. And that's exactly where we're heading next. In the next section, we'll explore step 1, the art of pause, how a single breath, used properly, can separate you from the chaos of life and reconnect you with your inner strength. But before we go there, ask yourself this: what would your life look like if, starting today, you stopped trying to control everything and started mastering yourself instead?
The greatest power you have in moments of overwhelm isn't movement, it's pause. But pause doesn't mean paralysis. It means awareness before action. Think about it. When a fire breaks out, those who panic burn with it. Those who pause, breathe, and see clearly, those are the ones who survive. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it a name. They called it prohairesis, the power of choice, the gap between what happens and how you respond. Viktor Frankl, a modern philosopher shaped by Stoic ideas, said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." The pause is that space. It's where your life changes, not in the chaos outside, but in the calm within. Yet most of us live like we're sprinting through fire, reacting, defending, collapsing. The pause feels unnatural because silence feels like surrender. But in Stoicism, silence is strategy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are troubled by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's the art of pause, the power to revoke panic. Now imagine a modern scene. It's Monday morning. Your phone buzzes nonstop, emails pile up, someone at work criticizes your effort, traffic was hell, your plans are falling apart, and by noon you're already running on fumes. In those moments, the human instinct is to react, to defend, to explain, to fight back. But Stoicism teaches you to do the opposite, to pause, to breathe, to see. Because in that one moment when the chaos demands your reaction, your ability to not react becomes your greatest strength. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." When you rush into reaction, you waste clarity. You let emotions lead logic. The Stoic pause is the act of reclaiming time itself, buying a moment of sanity in a world addicted to immediacy. Every great act of self-control starts there, in the refusal to let your first emotion become your final decision. But why is the pause so hard? Because your brain is wired to fear silence. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Our minds crave resolution, even when it leads to poor choices. That's why people text back in anger, make promises they regret, or spiral in overthinking. The Stoics practiced pausing not because it was easy, but because it was essential. They trained their minds to slow down in storms, to see emotion as information, not instruction. Epictetus told his students, "When something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it. You can either accept it or resent it." That line isn't passive, it's revolutionary.
It means that the first step to taking back power isn't doing something, it's not doing everything. It's reclaiming your attention from the noise, your breath from panic, your choices from impulse. Here's the paradox. The more you pause, the more progress you make, because clarity creates speed. When you pause before speaking, you speak wiser. When you pause before reacting, you act with reason instead of rage. And when you pause before quitting, you remember why you started. The Stoics saw life as a battlefield of the mind, and the pause was their shield. Seneca practiced a nightly ritual. Before sleep, he reviewed his entire day, his reactions, his mistakes, his moments of weakness, and he asked himself, what did I do well? What could I have done better? What did I learn? That reflection was his form of pause. It turned every day, no matter how chaotic, into a classroom. That's something you can do right now. Instead of running from your overwhelm, pause and study it. Ask, what exactly is causing this feeling? What part of this is truly within my control? You'll find that most of what's crushing you exists only in thought, not in fact. Let's make this even more practical. The next time you feel life closing in, before you grab your phone, before you speak, before you spiral, take one deep breath and ask yourself 3 Stoic questions. Is this within my control? What is the worst realistic outcome? And if Marcus Aurelius were here, how would he see this moment? Those 3 questions interrupt the emotional autopilot and reconnect you with wisdom. You'll notice that your anxiety starts to lose its grip. You can see the problem instead of becoming the problem. This isn't escapism, it's empowerment. You're not ignoring the fire. You're learning how to move through it without burning your mind. But here's where most people stop, and where the Stoic path truly begins. The pause is not the end goal, it's the foundation. Because once you learn to pause, you create the mental space for the next step, ordering your thoughts. In Stoicism, the pause is like stepping back from a painting to finally see it clearly. Without that distance, you can't tell chaos from pattern, truth from illusion. But once you see the full picture, you can begin to reshape it. That's what step 2 is about. Taking the stillness you gain from the pause and using it to organize your internal world so that no matter what's happening outside, your mind remains unshaken. So, before we move to step 2, let this thought echo in your mind. Every storm begins with wind, but every calm begins with a pause. The next time life feels like too much, remember, the power to begin again lies in a single breath. That's not poetry, that's discipline. And in the next part, we'll unlock how Stoics use that discipline not just to pause the noise, but to reprogram their thinking, transforming confusion into clarity and chaos into control.
You've paused. You've taken that breath. The world has slowed, even if just for a heartbeat. But what comes next? Because pausing without direction can become stagnation. You've cleared the fog, but now you must see through it. This is the second step, the discipline of ordering your thoughts. And it's here that most people fail, not because they lack intelligence, but because they've never been taught how to think clearly. The Stoics understood that the mind is like a city. If left ungoverned, it falls into disorder. If ruled wisely, it becomes unshakable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Not the number of your achievements, not the praise of others. Your thoughts." So, let's be honest. What's the current quality of yours? When life feels like too much, it's rarely the weight of events crushing you. It's the cluttered swarm of interpretations, fears, and what-ifs that fill your inner city. The first battle is fought in the mind's parliament, and until you bring order there, no amount of motivation or strategy will bring peace. Here's what most people don't realize. Your brain is not your enemy. It's just disorganized. It's like an overflowing room where every thought, emotion, and fear screams for attention. And when everything is loud, even small problems
sound catastrophic. The Stoics called this the tyranny of impressions, when unexamined thoughts rule your mind like wild kings. Epictetus taught his students to challenge every thought that entered their minds. He would say, "Do not say more to yourself than the first impressions report." What does that mean? It means don't add stories to reality. If someone doesn't text you back, that's just a fact. The story you attach, "They don't care, I'm being ignored, I'm not enough," that's your creation. And that creation is what overwhelms you. Seneca said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." The mind untrained invents pain. The mind ordered reveals peace. Let me tell you a modern story. There was a young entrepreneur, brilliant, driven, but paralyzed by stress. Every day felt like drowning in demands, investors, clients, messages, expectations. One night, unable to sleep, he stumbled across Meditations. He read one line: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That night, something shifted. He began to treat his mind like a system, not a storm. Each morning, he wrote down every thought, every worry, every fear. Then, one by one, he asked, "Is this within my control?" What was left, he worked on. What wasn't, he let go. Within weeks, the noise began to quiet. The problems didn't vanish, but they fell into order. He realized the chaos wasn't in his life. It was in his labeling of life. This is the power of step 2. When you order your thoughts, you no longer drown in them, you direct them. Now here's how to do it the Stoic way. When you feel overwhelmed, take out a notebook or even your phone and perform what I call the mind audit. Write down every single thought occupying your mental space. Don't filter, just release. Then divide that list into 3 columns. Column 1, facts, things that have objectively happened. Column 2, interpretations, your emotional or subjective take on those facts. Column 3, actions, what you can realistically do about it. This simple practice mirrors how Stoic philosophers wrote their daily reflections. Marcus Aurelius did it in his Meditations. Seneca did it in his letters to Lucilius. What you're doing is separating noise from truth. Because until your thoughts are sorted, your emotions will dominate your decisions. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about disciplined thinking. And discipline is freedom. There's something almost surgical about this process. It's not warm or easy, it's precise. But that precision is what saves you. Every time you separate what's real from what's imagined, you take back power from panic. Imagine this. Your thoughts are like soldiers on a battlefield. Right now, they're scattered, running in all directions. Ordering your thoughts is like lining them up, giving each one a purpose. Some need to retreat, those you can't control. Some need to advance, actions you must take. Some just need rest, the ones that drain your energy for no reason. When you lead your thoughts, they stop attacking you. That's when your mind begins to serve you instead of enslaving you. But here's the secret most overlook. Ordering your thoughts isn't a one-time fix. It's a lifelong discipline. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations once and declare himself cured. He wrote it every day until his dying breath. He knew the mind's tendency to drift, to lose clarity, to fall back into illusion. The Stoic life isn't about reaching a permanent state of calm, it's about constantly returning to it. So that's why this step is called order, not control. You can't control every thought, but you can give them structure. And structure creates space. Space creates clarity. clarity creates peace. Now, think about how this applies to your life. How many of your worries are just unorganized thoughts masquerading as problems? How many sleepless nights have been spent solving situations that never actually happened? The Stoics didn't fear uncertainty. They feared confusion, because confusion breeds weakness. When your mind is in chaos, even small challenges feel unbearable. But when your mind is ordered, even chaos becomes navigable. This is what Marcus meant when he said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Once your thoughts are aligned, obstacles transform into direction. Every setback becomes data. Every loss becomes lesson. Every challenge becomes fuel. But here's where the next step takes us, because ordering your thoughts is powerful, yet incomplete. Once you've brought structure to your mind, you must face the emotional storms that still rise from within, because clarity without emotional mastery is fragile. The Stoics knew that reason alone doesn't free you. It must be fused with emotional resilience. And that's what we explore next. Step 3, strengthen the emotional core. Because until your emotions are trained to serve your reason, your peace will always be temporary. And the Stoics had a remarkable way of turning emotional pain into unbreakable strength.
You've paused. You've brought order to the noise in your mind. But even with a clear head, life still hurts, doesn't it? You can understand something logically and still feel the weight of it pressing on your chest, because logic can't stop your heart from breaking. And that's where the third step comes in. Strengthen the emotional core. This isn't about suppressing feelings. The Stoics never taught emotional numbness. They taught emotional strength. Marcus Aurelius felt grief, anger, fatigue, and despair, just like we do. But he learned not to drown in those emotions. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't mean we should stop feeling. He meant we should stop letting feelings dictate who we become. You see, most people think emotional control means not feeling anything. That's wrong. It means feeling everything fully, without letting it consume you. It's the difference between standing in a storm and becoming the storm. Seneca, who lost his own son and faced exile, wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Emotional resilience is proof that your inner world is stronger than your outer circumstances. In modern terms, psychologists call this emotional regulation, the ability to experience emotions without being ruled by them. The Stoics called it apatheia, not apathy, but mastery. It's the state where emotions are acknowledged but never allowed to command. Imagine it as an unshakable core, a calm flame inside you that never flickers no matter how strong the wind gets. Let's make that real. Picture this: you're driving home after a long day. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your pulse spikes. Instantly, your brain floods with adrenaline. You shout, you clench your fists, you replay the insult in your mind. But ask yourself, what actually happened? Someone changed lanes, that's all. The rest, your anger, your story, your emotional eruption, came from interpretation. Stoic training turns that reaction into reflection. You'd pause, take a breath, and say, "A driver cut in front of me. That's within their control, not mine." Just like that, your power returns, because every moment of emotional mastery is a victory of reason over reflex. The emotion doesn't disappear, it transforms. That's strength. But let's go deeper. Emotional resilience isn't built in comfort, it's forged in discomfort. Seneca practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Each morning, he imagined loss, pain, betrayal, death, not to depress himself, but to prepare. He wrote, He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. Think about that. He rehearsed the worst-case scenarios, so when they arrived, they couldn't surprise him. Modern psychology mirrors this in exposure therapy, gradually confronting discomfort until fear loses its grip. The Stoics were training their nervous systems before the term even existed. They didn't wait for pain to pass, they prepared for it. Because pain is inevitable, panic is optional.
And here's where the modern world gets it backward. We're taught to chase happiness, to avoid discomfort at all costs. But the more you avoid pain, the weaker your emotional muscles become. Like a body that never trains, the mind that avoids struggle becomes fragile. Marcus Aurelius didn't become wise in peace, he became wise in war. You can't grow resilience without resistance. You can't master emotions you refuse to face. So the next time life hits hard, when you're rejected, when plans collapse, when someone betrays you, pause and whisper the ancient Stoic mantra, endure and adapt. Because in that moment, you're standing in the same fire that forged the strongest minds in history. The Stoics believe that every hardship is a teacher wearing the mask of pain. Epictetus was born a slave, crippled by his master, yet he became one of the most unbreakable men who ever lived. He said, "Difficulties show what men are. Not what they know, not what they preach, but what they truly are." Your reactions reveal your training. Your emotional responses expose whether you've been practicing Stoicism or only admiring it. And that's why step 3 matters so much. Because no amount of knowledge can save you when your emotions are untamed. If your anger can be provoked, your peace can be stolen. If your sadness can paralyze you, your potential can be silenced. But when you train your emotional core through awareness, reflection, and resilience, you become untouchable. Not because the world stops testing you, but because you stop breaking under its tests. So how do you build that inner strength in a modern world that thrives on emotional reaction? Start small. Practice what the Stoics called voluntary discomfort. Take cold showers, sit in silence, delay gratification. Speak calmly when your instincts tell you to shout. Each act of controlled discomfort is a rep for your emotional muscle. You're teaching your nervous system that not every impulse deserves a reaction. The next time someone disrespects you, remember this: silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. The ability to stay still when others rage is the highest form of emotional power. It's what Marcus practiced daily when he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." He didn't waste energy on retaliation, he conserved it for creation. You can do the same. You can turn emotional energy into creative energy. Anger can become focus. Grief can become gratitude. Fear can become fuel. And this brings us to a deeper truth. Your emotions are not enemies to destroy, they're signals to understand. The Stoics never sought to erase emotion, they sought to interpret it. Anger tells you something you value has been violated. Fear warns you of potential loss. Sadness reveals what truly matters. But when you listen to these emotions without letting them drive the chariot, you gain the power of metacognition, the ability to observe without obeying. That's the secret of emotional strength. You stop being the actor tossed by every scene of life, and you become the director. You begin to design your inner world intentionally. Still, there's one more layer to this. Emotional strength doesn't mean isolation. The Stoics weren't cold statues, they were deeply connected human beings. Marcus loved his family fiercely. Seneca mentored with compassion. Epictetus taught community. But they understood that love without boundaries leads to dependence, and compassion without control leads to burnout. The modern world tells you to feel everything. The Stoics would say, feel deeply, but wisely. Because true freedom isn't detachment, it's discernment. When your emotional core is strong, you can love without losing yourself. You can care without collapsing. You can face tragedy without despair. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you sat with your pain without trying to escape it? When was the last time you thanked your emotions for what they were trying to teach you? Because that is where transformation begins. Emotional mastery is not a switch, it's a practice. Every time you respond with reason instead of reaction, you strengthen your core. Every time you breathe through discomfort instead of avoiding it, you grow your resilience. The Stoics didn't wait for peace, they built it inside chaos. That's the level of power you're capable of. But here's the twist, and where step 4 takes us. Once you've learned to pause, to order your thoughts, and to strengthen your emotions, there's one final test: action. Stoicism was never meant to stay in books, it was meant to be lived. Philosophy wasn't a shield from life, it was a weapon for life. And in step 4, we'll uncover how the Stoics turned all this inner clarity into outer courage, the kind of action that changes fate itself. Because what's the point of mastering your mind if you never move it towards something greater? In the next part, we'll explore how to take decisive, fearless action, even when the world feels too heavy to move. That's where theory ends and power begins.
Now comes the hardest part, the one most people avoid: action. Because after all the reflection, all the calm, all the journaling and inner clarity, the world still demands movement. You can pause, order your thoughts, and strengthen your emotions, but none of that means anything if you don't take action. Stoicism isn't a philosophy of retreat, it's a philosophy of engagement. Marcus Aurelius wasn't meditating in a cave, he was ruling an empire at war. Epictetus wasn't writing theory from comfort, he was teaching wisdom after surviving slavery. Seneca didn't just write about courage, he lived it until his final breath. Stoicism begins in the mind, but it ends in the world. And the fourth step, the final step, is to act with courage and intention. Because clarity without movement is just potential. Courage turns potential into power. The Stoics believed that action is the ultimate expression of philosophy. To live according to nature meant to act in alignment with reason and virtue, not according to impulse, not according to fear, but according to duty and discipline. Marcus wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That line alone captures the soul of Stoic action. You already know what's right. You already know what needs to be done. The gap between knowing and doing, that's where most people drown. We hesitate, overthink, and wait for perfect conditions. But life never waits, and neither should you. The Stoics sought procrastination as a spiritual sickness, a disease of hesitation. Seneca warned, "While we wait for life, life passes." Every time you delay action, you trade a moment of progress for a lifetime of regret. But what does courageous action actually look like in a modern world? It doesn't always mean heroic leaps or grand decisions. Often it's quiet consistency, the courage to show up when no one notices. It's sending that message even when you fear rejection. It's speaking truth when silence would be easier. It's leaving the comfort zone that's slowly killing your potential. Courage isn't loud, it's disciplined. It's not about eliminating fear, it's about refusing to obey it. The Stoics knew that fear isn't a sign to stop, it's a signal that something meaningful is at stake. Epictetus told his students, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" That question echoes through centuries, and it's one you need to ask yourself today. Because in the end, the measure of your strength isn't how calm you can be in thought, it's how bold you can be in action. Here's a truth most people miss. Overthinking is just fear disguised as intelligence. The Stoics would say it's the mind pretending to protect you while secretly imprisoning you. Marcus called it the endless chatter of the soul. The cure? Action. Not reckless motion, but intentional movement aligned with virtue. You see, courage without direction is chaos, and wisdom without action is wasted. Stoicism demands both. That's why the fourth step is not just to act, but to act with intention. Every action must align with your values. Seneca said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Your intention is that port. Without it, every decision scatters your energy. With it, even small steps become powerful. Let's make this real. Imagine you're at a crossroads.
One path, safe, familiar, comfortable. The other, uncertain, risky, unknown. The Stoic doesn't choose based on fear or comfort. They choose based on character. They ask, which path strengthens my soul? Marcus faced this daily, deciding between the comfort of avoidance and the duty of leadership. You face it too, every time you choose silence over honesty, comfort over courage, distraction over discipline. The Stoic path is not easy, but it's simple. Choose what makes you stronger, not safer. Because every act of courage trains your spirit for the next challenge. Every time you face fear and move anyway, your power compounds. And here's the beauty of this step. It creates momentum. Once you act, even imperfectly, life begins to move with you. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate. It means embracing everything that happens, even failure, as necessary for growth. When you act with intention, even mistakes become meaningful. You stop resisting outcomes and start refining your responses. You become, as Marcus wrote, a rock against which the waves continually break, yet it stands firm and tames the fury of the waters. That's the power of aligned action. It doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees strength. You no longer need to control every result because your focus is on becoming the kind of person who can handle any result. But let's not romanticize it. Action will test you. You'll doubt yourself, you'll fail, you'll feel like giving up. And that's the moment the Stoics lived for. The moment where comfort ends and character begins. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Every failure is friction. Every obstacle is polish. Every time you act despite fear, you shine a little brighter. That's the Stoic paradox. The more you struggle, the stronger you become. The world tries to protect you from pain, but Stoicism prepares you for it. Because a prepared mind doesn't crumble, it adapts. So let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you replaced hesitation with action? If instead of waiting for motivation, you moved with intention? Because the Stoics didn't believe in waiting, they believed in living. Every moment wasted in fear is a moment stolen from potential. The time for courage is not someday, it's always now. The pause gives you clarity, the order gives you focus, the emotional core gives you strength, but action, that's where you reclaim your power. Because philosophy means nothing if it never leaves the page. The Stoics wrote their wisdom so we could live it. So start now. Begin small, but begin. Because the act of beginning is itself an act of courage. And yet, there's one final truth, something the Stoics whispered through every page of their philosophy. You will fall again. You will forget. You will be overwhelmed once more. And that's not failure. That's the rhythm of life. In the next part, we'll explore how to return to strength again and again, how to sustain Stoic power, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. Because true mastery isn't never falling. It's rising faster every time you do.
What if I told you that even the greatest Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, fell apart sometimes? That even the strongest minds cracked under the weight of life? We like to imagine them as unshakable statues of discipline and calm, but they were human, bleeding, breaking, and rebuilding just like us. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not as a victory speech, but as self-therapy during war, plague, and betrayal. Seneca wrote letters about peace while his friends were executed. Epictetus taught freedom while still limping from the chains of slavery. The truth is, Stoicism isn't about never falling. It's about how fast you rise after you do. And that's the next step to beating overwhelm. Learning how to return to strength again and again, no matter how many times life knocks you down. You see, when life feels like too much, most people think they've failed. They think, if I were stronger, this wouldn't hurt. But pain isn't proof of weakness, it's the signal of growth. The Stoics didn't try to escape pain, they used it. They believed that life's blows are the forge of character. Marcus wrote, "The obstacle is the way." Not a way, the way. Every hardship is the doorway to a greater version of yourself, but most people stop at the threshold. They feel pain and retreat. The Stoic feels pain and pauses.
then steps forward through it, because that's where resilience is built. In the decision to rise again and again, no matter how many times life knocks you down. There's a reason modern psychology calls this post-traumatic growth. Science now confirms what the Stoics knew 2,000 years ago. Struggle doesn't just build character, it transforms it. People who face and process hardship often develop greater empathy, gratitude, and purpose. Seneca said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men." The Stoics welcomed trials because they revealed truth. When you're stripped of comfort, reputation, and control, what's left is who you truly are. And that's when you begin to rebuild, not from ego, but from essence. This is what returning to strength really means. Not getting back to who you were before you fell, but becoming someone wiser because you did. But here's what makes this difficult in the modern world. Today, we're taught to chase constant positivity. Stay strong, keep smiling, never give up. But Stoicism offers something deeper and more honest. It says, fall, but rise with awareness. Don't deny your pain. Don't bury it under affirmations. Observe it. Understand it. Write it down. Ask, what is this teaching me? Because every fall carries a message. Maybe it's reminding you that you've been carrying too much alone. Maybe it's showing you that you've been living by others' expectations, not your own. The Stoics didn't avoid introspection. They used it like a weapon. That's why Marcus's Meditations wasn't written for us, it was written to himself. It was his way of coming back to center when life blurred the edges. So, how do you return to strength in practice? You start with the same 4 steps: pause, order, strengthen, and act. But this time you repeat them not as recovery, but as ritual. When you fall, you don't ask, why me? You ask, what now? You breathe, you journal, you walk, you accept, and then you begin again. That's Stoic resilience. It's a cycle, not a finish line. Epictetus said, no great thing is created suddenly. That includes you. Every fall is just another strike of the sculptor's chisel, shaping you into who you're meant to become. Each mistake, each heartbreak, each loss, it's all part of the carving process. You're not breaking, you're being refined. And maybe that's what modern Stoicism truly means, the art of staying in the fight. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but consistently. Because the Stoics never promised comfort, they promised clarity. They didn't say life would get easier, they said you would get stronger. Marcus didn't pray for lighter burdens, he prayed for broader shoulders. And so must you. When overwhelm comes, you don't fight the storm. You anchor yourself within it. You can't control the wind, but you can control your sail. You can't control the noise, but you can choose your silence. You can't stop life from breaking your heart, but you can stop it from breaking your will. And here's the paradox. Every time you rise, you fear falling again. That's normal. Even Stoics felt that fear. Seneca admitted it in his letters. Sometimes I fall back into my old vices. He didn't hide his imperfections, he studied them. That's what makes Stoicism real. It's not a performance of strength, it's the practice of returning to it. You will lose your composure, you will forget your wisdom, you will fail your ideals. But what separates the wise from the weak isn't perfection, it's persistence. Every morning, Marcus began again. Every evening, he forgave himself and prepared for the next day. That's Stoic power. Not never breaking, but becoming unbreakable through the act of rebuilding. So let me ask you this. What's the part of your life you've given up trying to rebuild? The relationship? The dream? The discipline? Because the Stoics would say, it's never too late to begin again. The fire that burned you can also forge you. The weight that crushed you can also strengthen you. The failure that shamed you can also awaken you. But only if you decide to rise one more time. That's the secret Stoic truth. The comeback is always within your control. The world can knock you down, but it can't stop you from standing up. Not once, not ever. And yet, there's one more lesson. The one that Marcus wrote about in his final years. The one Seneca hinted at in his last letter. and the one Epictetus called the freedom no one can take away. It's what comes after resilience, the stage beyond power, beyond control, beyond fear. It's the art of letting go. Because true Stoicism doesn't end with control. It ends with peace. In the next part, we'll dive into that final state, how to let go, not in defeat, but in ultimate strength. Because once you learn to rise, the next step is learning not to cling.
Let go. Two words that sound simple, but might be the hardest command in all of philosophy. Because letting go isn't about giving up. It's about giving in to the rhythm of life as it really is, not as you wish it to be. When everything feels like too much, when your plans collapse, when people disappoint you, when outcomes slip through your fingers, your instinct is to cling, to control, to fix. But the Stoics taught the opposite. They said, peace begins the moment you accept that you control nothing beyond your own mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It sounds beautiful when life is calm, but when the storm hits, when you're losing something you love, that's when these words become a battlefield. And that's when letting go becomes the purest act of power. The Stoics weren't detached monks hiding from life. They were leaders, fathers, teachers, and warriors surrounded by chaos. Marcus faced death, betrayal, and endless wars, yet he learned to surrender, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. He wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs?" That's not resignation, it's alignment. It's understanding that life doesn't owe you comfort, it offers you lessons. Seneca echoed this when he said, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." To the Stoics, pain wasn't injustice, it was instruction. Letting go means you stop arguing with reality. You stop trying to edit the script of life, and instead you learn to play your role with grace, no matter what scene you're in. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop grasping for control, you gain it over yourself. This is the Stoic miracle of detachment. Modern psychology calls it radical acceptance. It means embracing reality exactly as it is, without denial or despair. Because when you stop resisting, your energy shifts from panic to purpose. You no longer waste strength trying to control the uncontrollable. You invest it in mastering your reactions. That's what Epictetus meant when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The Stoics saw control as an inner fortress, a space no external event could breach. Inside that space, you decide how to think, how to feel, how to respond. And that's where peace lives, not outside, but within. Think about it. How much of your suffering comes not from events themselves, but from your attachment to how you wish they would be? You replay the past, resist the present, and fear the future, all because you believe peace will come only when life aligns with your expectations. But Stoicism flips that. Peace comes when you align with life. Marcus called this living in agreement with nature. It means to flow with what is, not fight against it. It's what modern neuroscience now confirms. Resistance amplifies suffering, acceptance dissolves it. The more you fight reality, the more it fights back. But when you surrender to the flow, you stop drowning. You start swimming. Letting go doesn't mean apathy. It means serenity.
It doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. The Stoics loved deeply, worked fiercely, and cared endlessly, but they held everything with open hands. They knew that love bound by fear isn't love, it's possession. Ambition chained to outcome isn't drive, it's desperation. Control is an illusion. The tighter you grip, the more life slips through your fingers. The Stoic way is to hold with gentleness, not grasping. To do your duty fully, then release the result, entirely. As Marcus said, do your best, then let it go, not blaming yourself, not expecting applause. That's liberation, not from the world, but from the need to dominate it. There's a story about Epictetus that captures this perfectly. One day, his master broke his leg while torturing him. Epictetus didn't scream or curse. He simply said, "You will break it." And when the bones snapped, he calmly added, "Did I not tell you?" He didn't accept cruelty, he accepted reality. His body could be controlled, but his mind belonged to him. That's the essence of letting go, not indifference, but independence. When you stop needing the world to behave a certain way, you become unshakable. You can lose wealth, health, reputation, even people, and still remain whole. Because you've learned to anchor your peace inside yourself. That's what no one can take. But here's the hidden lesson. Letting go isn't a one-time act. It's a daily practice. Every morning, Marcus reminded himself that he would meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful. Every night, he reviewed his reactions and released what he couldn't change. That's the rhythm of Stoic peace. Awareness, acceptance, adjustment. You let go of yesterday's mistakes, you let go of tomorrow's fears. You return to the present moment, the only place life truly exists. That's why the Stoics called the present logos, the rational order of existence. And when you live there fully, even chaos feels sacred. Yet here's the final paradox, and the open door to what comes next. The more you let go of control, the more powerful you become within yourself. But there's a stage even beyond that, a freedom so deep that it transcends even strength itself. The Stoics called it tranquillitas animi, the stillness of the soul. It's not just peace, it's presence. It's the ability to stand in the middle of life's fire and feel untouched by the flames.
Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a storm. The world around you is shaking. Thunder cracks, wind roars, debris flies. But inside you, silence. Your body is steady. You're breathing calm. The noise no longer commands your attention. You're not immune to chaos. You've simply transcended it. That's what the Stoics called tranquillitas animi, the stillness of the soul. It isn't the absence of storms, it's the presence of an unshakable center. Marcus Aurelius lived in that center. Seneca described it as a mind at peace with itself. Epictetus taught it as the highest form of freedom. And this stillness, is the final destination of Stoic practice. Everything you've learned so far, the pause, the order, the strength, the action, the resilience, the letting go, it all leads here, to a place where peace is not a reward, but your natural state. But let's be clear, tranquility isn't some mystical escape. It's not apathy, nor indifference, nor withdrawal. It's active serenity, a mind so disciplined that chaos cannot invade it. Seneca wrote, "The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be. In modern terms, this is emotional homeostasis, the state where your internal environment remains stable, no matter how much the external world changes. Neuroscience now shows that when the brain practices non-reactivity, it literally rewires itself for calm. The Stoics, without knowing the word neuroplasticity, were already practicing it through meditation, reflection, and restraint. They weren't suppressing emotion, they were mastering its movement. Stillness, to the Stoic, isn't stillness of the body, it's stillness of perception. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Think about that. The most peaceful place in the world isn't found in mountains, temples, or oceans. It's found within your own awareness. That means peace isn't something you search for. It's something you return to. Every time you stop chasing outcomes, comparing yourself, or fighting what is, you return home. The modern world pulls you outward, fragmenting your attention. Stoicism calls you back inward, to the steady flame that never flickers. And when you find that inner flame, life stops feeling like a battle. It becomes a rhythm. Let's take Marcus as an example. He was an emperor, yes, but he was also a human being surrounded by death, betrayal, and exhaustion. Every morning, before facing the Senate or the battlefield, he would write to himself. He'd remind his mind, "You have power over your thoughts." That was his ritual of stillness. The world could rage around him, but he ruled the only empire that truly mattered, his inner one. You can do the same. Stillness doesn't require perfect conditions. It requires conscious practice. The next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. Inhale deeply. Imagine your mind as an ocean. The waves on the surface are your emotions, rising, falling, crashing. But deep below, the water is always calm. That depth is your stoic self, the part of you that no chaos can reach. And here's something remarkable. Stillness is contagious. When you embody calm, others feel it. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." But when you live from tranquility, you become a mirror that reflects steadiness into every situation. The angry calm down in your presence. The anxious breathe easier. The fearful gain courage, because your peace gives them permission to find their own. That's why Stoicism isn't selfish, it's service. A still soul stabilizes the world around it. Marcus didn't meditate just for himself, he did it for Rome. Your inner calm might just be the leadership the world around you desperately needs. But here's the truth Stoicism never sugarcoated. Tranquility doesn't mean life stops testing you. You will still face loss, you will still face betrayal, you will still be challenged. But when your peace no longer depends on circumstance, you become invincible. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." He meant, let go of the need to prove, perform, or persuade. When your peace comes from within, nothing external can touch it. Not failure, not rejection, not even death. Seneca called this the final victory, to reach a state where fortune cannot harm you because you no longer live by its terms. Now let's bring this into the modern age. The average person checks their phone 300 times a day. Every notification is a micro-attack on your tranquility. Every scroll triggers comparison, envy, or anxiety. But Stoicism offers the antidote, intentional attention. What if you treated your focus as sacred? What if you decided that nothing, no algorithm, no opinion, no chaos, deserves control of your mind? You'd reclaim your stillness. You'd reclaim yourself.
Because peace isn't found in silence, it's found in sovereignty. The Stoic doesn't escape the noise, they rise above it. They walk through the crowd untouched, like Marcus wrote, as the promontory stands firm while the waves crash and foam around it. And yet there's one more truth, the one that transforms tranquility from calm into power. Stillness alone isn't enough. The Stoics believe peace must serve purpose, otherwise it decays into stagnation. A still soul is not a passive soul, it's a prepared one, ready to face life with grace, courage, and compassion. That's the next evolution, how to use your peace as power, to influence, to lead, to create, to love. Because Stoicism isn't just about surviving the storm. It's about walking out of it wiser, grounded, and ready to guide others through theirs. In the next part, we'll unlock that final transformation, how to turn Stoic stillness into real-world strength, to move through life not as a victim of chaos, but as its calm, commanding center.
You've found your stillness. You've built that inner fortress where chaos can't reach you. But now comes the question that separates the wise from the idle. What do you do with your peace? Because stillness without action is a lake without flow, calm, but stagnant. The Stoics never sought tranquility for escape. They sought it for power. Marcus Aurelius meditated not to hide from life, but to lead it. Epictetus didn't teach calmness so his students could withdraw from the world. He taught it so they could face it without losing themselves. And that's where Stoic mastery becomes something greater than survival. It becomes impact. The calm mind isn't meant to stay quiet. It's meant to speak with purpose. This is where philosophy meets life. Stillness becomes strength. Strength becomes service. Think about it. The modern world worships noise, speed, reaction, outrage. Everyone is shouting. Everyone is rushing. Everyone is performing. In that environment, the calm person becomes magnetic. The one who pauses before speaking commands attention. The one who listens deeply influences quietly. The one who remains grounded when others panic becomes a pillar. That's why the Stoic mindset is more relevant today than ever. It's a superpower in an age of chaos. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." In today's world, that bravery shows up as composure under pressure, discipline amid distraction, and focus in a sea of noise. It's the courage to move slowly when everyone else is racing blindly. Let's make this real. Imagine two people in a crisis, one consumed by panic, the other breathing steadily, thinking clearly, acting intentionally. Who leads? Who creates? Who calms others? The Stoics understood that power isn't in control, it's in composure. That's why Marcus wrote, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That single principle, the obstacle is the way, is how stillness turns into motion. When you stop fighting obstacles emotionally, you can finally use them strategically. You stop wasting energy on resistance and redirect it toward creation. That's Stoic alchemy, turning struggle into strategy, chaos into clarity. This is why Stoicism isn't just ancient wisdom, it's modern neuroscience in motion. Today, we know that emotional regulation activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reason, planning, and creativity. In other words, calm literally makes you smarter. The Stoics practiced this without MRI machines. They knew that the calm mind is the most powerful mind. When you're no longer reacting, you can finally respond. You become the eye of the storm, seeing everything, judging nothing, acting precisely. That's how Seneca could advise emperors. That's how Marcus could rule empires. That's how you can master your own world, your career, relationships, habits, and purpose, without letting chaos dictate your course.
But here's where many fall short. They use Stoicism as a shield to protect themselves, but forget it's also a sword to serve others. True Stoic power is quiet influence. It's leadership without domination. It's empathy without attachment. It's courage without arrogance. The Stoics believed that the highest form of wisdom was virtue, living for something greater than yourself. Marcus wrote, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." That's the blueprint for modern leadership. When your peace fuels your purpose, your presence becomes transformative. You walk into rooms and people feel safer. You speak and people listen. You act with restraint and others follow your example. That's not charisma, it's equanimity in action. And it's not just philosophy, it's psychology. Studies show that people with high emotional regulation are perceived as more competent, trustworthy, and inspiring. Calmness isn't passive, it's persuasive. It's the language of authority without aggression. That's why the Stoics were never loud, they were steady. And steadiness wins in every field. Whether you're a creator, a leader, a parent, or simply a human being trying to live well, the calmer your inner state, the clearer your outer impact. You stop chasing validation. You stop reacting to judgment. You start operating from conviction. Because you no longer need to prove, you simply are. But here's the paradox. When you start living from stillness, life will test it. People will try to provoke you. Situations will challenge your patience. Your peace will be questioned. And that's how it grows. Every trigger becomes training. Every difficulty becomes discipline. Every conflict becomes a classroom. Epictetus said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." That's not softness, that's supreme strength. It means you use every challenge as a mirror, not a weapon. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That's how peace becomes power, because you turn every battle inward where victory actually matters. And once you start living like this, something magical happens. Life slows down. You stop rushing to fix everything. You begin to move with intention. You start creating from clarity, not anxiety. You stop competing and you start contributing. The world still moves fast, but you no longer chase it. You guide it. You set the tone. That's the Stoic paradox. The less you try to control life, the more life begins to align with your control. You become, as Marcus said, the ruler of yourself. And that's the only kingdom worth mastering. But there's still one last transformation left, one that Marcus himself struggled with until his dying breath. You've learned to act, to rise, to let go, and to stay still. But how do you live in a world that will one day take everything from you and still remain free? That's the final test of the Stoic soul. In the next part, we'll explore the ultimate Stoic acceptance, how to face loss, time, and mortality, not with fear, but with awe. Because to master life, you must first learn how to meet the end of it without trembling.
There is one truth that even emperors couldn't escape, one truth that humbles kings and comforts slaves alike. We are all going to die. Most people hear that and feel fear. The Stoics heard it and felt freedom. They called it memento mori, remember you must die. It wasn't meant to darken the heart, but to awaken it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." When you truly grasp that time is borrowed, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop arguing for your limitations. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, because suddenly you see clearly. The perfect moment is now. Mortality, when understood deeply, doesn't paralyze, it prioritizes. It burns away the trivial and illuminates the essential. And that is why this is the highest Stoic practice, to remember death, not to dread it. But how do you face death without fear, in a world that hides from it? Modern society does everything to distract us from mortality. We chase youth, we bury silence in noise, we treat aging like a disease instead of a privilege. We live as though life were infinite, and that illusion is the root of much suffering. The Stoics shattered that illusion daily. Seneca, in one of his letters, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." He warned that people guard their wealth but squander their time. And that's what most of us do. We protect our money, our reputation, our image, but we spend our minutes like they're worthless. Yet every minute is a coin of life you can never earn back. Every sunrise is one less you'll see. And when you realize that, not intellectually but viscerally, it changes everything. Suddenly, you live differently. You forgive faster. You love deeper. You create boldly. Because you finally understand, time isn't passing. You are. Here's a story that captures this truth. There's an old account of a Roman general who returned victorious from battle. As he rode through the city in his triumphal procession, crowds chanted his name, showering him with praise. But behind him stood a slave, whispering in his ear, "Memento mori, remember, you are mortal." Why? Because glory fades, fame evaporates, power ends, only virtue endures. That whisper wasn't to humble him, it was to free him from the illusion that he was more than human. And that's the whisper we all need today. Because in our digital empires, with followers, likes, and algorithms, it's easy to forget that every scroll, every click, every day brings us closer to the end. The Stoic doesn't ignore that truth. He uses it as fuel. When you live with the awareness of death, you stop wasting life trying to be remembered, and you start living in a way that's worth remembering. But there's a deeper paradox here. Most people think that thinking about death will make them anxious. The Stoics knew it does the opposite. When you face the reality of death with clarity, you stop fearing it, and that makes you untouchable. You become free from society's illusions, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of loss. What can the world take from a person who knows everything will one day be taken anyway? That realization doesn't lead to despair, it leads to serenity. You stop clinging to what must change. You stop fighting what must end. You start living with courage, not control. That's not nihilism, it's enlightenment. Epictetus said, "Death is nothing dreadful, for if it were, it would have appeared dreadful to Socrates." To live with memento mori is to walk through life as if every breath were sacred. It's to look at every sunrise and whisper, "Thank you for this one too." And yet, there's something even more profound. Memento mori is not only about remembering death, it's about remembering to live before it. Many people are technically alive, but spiritually asleep. They wake up, go through routines, chase goals that don't fulfill them, and call that living. The Stoics would say that's not life, it's mere existence. Marcus urged himself daily to wake up with purpose. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. That's the mindset of a true Stoic warrior, not one who fears the end, but one who honors the beginning every single day. Every moment becomes an opportunity to practice virtue, to serve, to grow. Death becomes not an enemy, but a teacher. It teaches urgency. It teaches gratitude. It teaches presence. Let me ask you something. If you knew you had only 1 year left, how would you live it? What would you stop tolerating? Who would you forgive? What would you finally create? You see, memento mori is not about dying tomorrow. It's about living fully today. It's about asking, what deserves my limited time and what doesn't? When you answer those questions honestly, life becomes simple again. You stop running in 1,000 directions. You start walking one path with intention. That's freedom. That's clarity. That's what the Stoics meant by mastering life through mastering death. And yet, This lesson isn't meant to leave you heavy, it's meant to make you light. Because when you make peace with the fact that everything ends, you begin to cherish everything while it lasts. Every conversation becomes precious. Every act of kindness becomes eternal. Every failure becomes trivial. You live like a person who truly sees. And that's the secret of all the Stoic greats. They didn't conquer death by denying it. They conquered it by embracing it. Seneca said, "He who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave." To what? To fear, to ego, to time, to everything that chains the human spirit. So, here's the paradoxical promise of Stoicism. When you stop running from the end, you finally begin your true beginning. And that leads us to the final chapter of this journey, the moment where philosophy turns into life itself. Because the Stoics didn't just want you to survive chaos or face death with grace, they wanted you to live beautifully. In the next part, we'll uncover the ultimate Stoic art, how to live with meaning, presence, and purpose, so that when your final moment comes, you can meet it not with regret, but with gratitude.
What does it truly mean to live well? The Stoics called it eudaimonia, a word often mistranslated as happiness, but it means something far deeper. To live in harmony with your highest self. Not pleasure, not comfort, not even success, but alignment. It's the kind of fulfillment that can't be taken away by loss or failure, because it doesn't depend on anything outside you. Marcus Aurelius described it as living according to nature. Not the trees and rivers, but the nature of reason, virtue, and purpose within us. To live well is to live truthfully, to act every day in a way that your soul won't regret. And that is where all the Stoic paths lead. Not to numbness, not to apathy, but to freedom through integrity. Because when your actions match your principles, peace follows naturally. You stop chasing happiness, and you start creating meaning. But here's the paradox. Most people don't suffer from lack of time. They suffer from lack of direction. They're busy, but lost. Productive, but empty. Successful, but disconnected. They have everything except themselves. The Stoics would say this is the disease of the modern world, chasing outer achievements without mastering inner alignment. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." We scroll through other people's lives, comparing, consuming, craving, and all the while, the quiet voice inside us whispers, "This isn't it." Stoicism doesn't tell you to abandon ambition, it tells you to purify it. Don't aim for applause, aim for virtue. Don't seek comfort, seek character. Because fulfillment is not found when life gets easier, but when your values get clearer. Imagine waking up each day not asking, "What do I have to do?" but "Who do I want to be?" That's the Stoic way. It transforms life from a checklist into a calling. When Marcus faced endless wars, betrayal, and plague, he still wrote about kindness, justice, self-control, and wisdom. Why? Because those are the Stoic virtues, the foundation of a life well lived. Wisdom, seeing reality clearly. Courage, acting rightly despite fear. Justice, treating others fairly. Temperance, mastering desire and excess. When those four virtues guide your choices, chaos loses its grip. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop existing and start living consciously. And that is where joy hides, not in the noise of victory, but in the silence of right action. But eudaimonia isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's built in the small moments that no one sees. When you choose patience over anger, gratitude over entitlement, presence over distraction. It's what you do when no one's watching that defines your inner wealth. The Stoics weren't superhumans.
They were ordinary people practicing extraordinary awareness. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." In today's terms, that means don't just post quotes, live them. Don't just admire discipline, be it. Don't just talk about resilience, train it. Because every act of virtue compounds just like every act of weakness. The more you live aligned, the stronger your peace becomes. The more you betray your principles, the louder your inner conflict grows. But here's the beauty. The Stoics didn't see perfection as the goal. They saw progress as the victory. Marcus constantly reminded himself, when you fail, begin again. Every day is a new chance to return to the path. You don't have to be flawless. You just have to be faithful. Because life isn't a straight road, it's a spiral staircase. You keep revisiting the same lessons, each time from a higher level of awareness. Some days you'll stumble, some days you'll rise, but as long as you keep walking with intention, you're already living well. That's the quiet triumph the Stoics understood. Success is not in reaching the end, it's in refusing to abandon the journey. And this journey changes how you relate to others too. When you live with integrity, you stop expecting perfection from people. You replace judgment with understanding. You see anger as ignorance, arrogance as insecurity, cruelty as confusion. Compassion grows naturally because you've mastered yourself. The Stoics didn't separate wisdom from kindness. They saw them as one. Marcus wrote, "When you have the power to do good, why delay?" Living well, then, is not about isolation, it's about contribution. When you stop being ruled by ego, you can finally serve others without losing yourself. You become a light, not by trying to shine, but by clearing the clouds within. So what does a modern Stoic life look like? It looks like waking up early, not because you have to, but because you choose discipline over comfort. It looks like speaking truth, even when it costs you approval. It looks like treating your family, your coworkers, even strangers with patience and dignity. It looks like forgiving yourself for your flaws, but never excusing them. It looks like simplicity, not in possessions, but in priorities. The Stoic doesn't need less, he wants less, because peace is not the absence of struggle, it's the presence of purpose. That's what eudaimonia feels like, a calm mind, an open heart, a clear direction. But there's still one final secret the Stoics left us with, the one Marcus carried to his bed death, the one Seneca wrote in his final letters, the one Epictetus lived as a free slave. They all believed that when you live with virtue, death loses its sting, because your life itself becomes eternal through its impact. That's the essence of the Stoic legacy, to live in such a way that even when you're gone, your example continues to guide others. That is the final art of living well, to live so truthfully that your very existence becomes a philosophy. And that's where we'll go next, in the final chapter of this journey, how to live as your highest self every day, even after this video ends. The Stoics taught that the purpose of philosophy isn't to escape life, it's to embrace it completely. In the last part, we'll bring it all together, the 4 steps, the philosophy, and the fire within you into one powerful truth that can change the course of your entire life.
So here we are. After everything, the storms, the stillness, the struggles, the surrender, one question remains. What will you do with your power now? Because Stoicism is not a theory to admire, it's a way to live. It's not about being emotionless or unbothered, it's about being anchored. You've learned how to pause when chaos hits. You've learned how to order your thoughts. You've learned to master your emotions, to act with courage, to sit with silence, to face death without fear, and to live with virtue. But now comes the real challenge, to practice it, every single day. Because philosophy without action is a beautiful statue, impressive but lifeless. The Stoics didn't want to be admired. They wanted to be remembered as people who lived what they believed. And now, that torch passes to you. Every morning, life will test you. The alarm will ring and comfort will whisper, 5 more minutes. The world will provoke you and anger will tempt you to react. Fear will whisper, you're not ready. Doubt will tell you to quit, and that's when your training begins. That's when Stoicism becomes real. Not when you're calm on the mountain, but when you're centered in the storm. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations for applause. He wrote it as a battlefield journal, a reminder to himself that virtue matters more than victory, that composure matters more than control. You can do the same. You can wake each day and remind yourself, I can't control the world, but I can control myself. That's your power, that's your freedom, that's your armor in a world that feeds on chaos. But here's the truth most people miss. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotion, it's about transcending it. It's not about coldness, it's about clarity. When you master your inner world, you feel everything, but you choose your response. You still love deeply, but without attachment. You still care fiercely, but without losing peace. You still pursue goals, but without becoming their slave. That's what it means to be unshakable, not emotionless, but emotionally sovereign. Because when you no longer belong to your impulses, you finally belong to yourself. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That's your mission now, to walk the earth as a free soul, untethered by fear, untouched by chaos, and unmoved by opinion. But freedom doesn't mean stillness, it means strength in motion. Every challenge becomes a test of your philosophy. When someone disrespects you, it's not a reason to lash out, it's a moment to practice patience. When plans collapse, it's not a reason to despair, it's a reminder to adapt. When you fail, it's not a sign of weakness, it's an invitation to grow. The Stoic warrior welcomes hardship because he knows it sharpens his virtue. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." So when life tests you, and it will, remember this, you are not being punished, you are being prepared. Every trial is refining you into someone stronger, calmer, wiser. And that's where true power begins. Not in control, but in surrender. The Stoics understood that peace isn't something you find, it's something you stop resisting. Life is not against you, it's responding to you. Every event, every loss, every delay, it's all part of your training ground. You are the student, and life is the teacher that never stops testing you. When you start to see it that way, gratitude replaces bitterness, stillness replaces stress, presence replaces fear. And that's when you finally grasp the heart of Stoicism. The world doesn't have to change for you to be at peace. You do. But here's the secret the Stoics never shouted. They lived it quietly. It's that all greatness begins within. Empires rise and fall, fortunes come and go, relationships begin and end, but your character, your discipline, your awareness, that's eternal. That's what death cannot touch. That's what time cannot erode. That's why Marcus, in his final writings, didn't speak of glory or power, but of humility and peace. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." That's it. That's the ultimate Stoic command. Don't talk about peace, embody it. Don't post quotes, live them. Don't chase freedom, be it. And when you start living like that, everything changes. You'll notice that chaos no longer scares you, fear no longer stops you, the opinions of others no longer shake you, because you'll finally realize life has never been about controlling the waves, it's been about learning how to surf them with grace. You'll fall, yes, but you'll rise faster. You'll lose, but you'll learn deeper. You'll hurt, but you'll heal stronger.
And through it all, your calm will become contagious. You'll become the person others turn to when their world falls apart, not because you have all the answers, but because you've built a peace that doesn't break. So, as this journey ends, take a deep breath. Look at where you are. You've walked through the fire of your own overwhelm and found power on the other side. You've learned that calm is not found, it's forged. You've learned that strength is not loud, it's silent. You've learned that happiness is not a goal, it's a byproduct of living in alignment. And most of all, you've learned that every single moment of your life, good or bad, is an opportunity to practice the philosophy that has guided the strongest minds in history. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, and now, you. So the next time life feels like too much, remember this: pause, breathe, think, act. Every hardship is a chance to train your soul. Every moment is a chance to return to virtue. And every breath you take is a reminder that you are alive, and that's all the permission you need to begin again. Because you, my friend, are not here to escape life, you're here to master it. And when you do, you won't just survive the storm, you'll become it. Calm, powerful, unshakable.